Children's independence and free play have been going down for decades, not just since phones, not just since COVID. And we keep saying, oh, kids, they're on their phones again. It's like, yeah, because they have no place else to go where they can hang out and have fun and joke around and play games and be kids without adults constantly helping and watching and nattering. So that's where they go.
Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Hi, Lenore.
Hey there, Rusty. Hey up there.
How are you down there in the big city?
Good. Everything's fine. Today is an unusual day. It's a 3 podcast day.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's exciting. Yeah. No,
All
it's
right.
great. It just means that people care. I'm really glad.
Yeah, it's really getting out there. Do you feel like the TED Talk is that drumming up
TED
stuff?
Talk is helping. And I think it's just accretion, years of talking about the same thing. I have to say, The Anxious Generation by my Let Grow co-founder has not hurt things. John
Hmm.
Haidt is very much in the news. Peter Gray gets quoted all the time. I mean, it feels like the people I work with are sort of in the mix right now.
Yeah, it's kind of front of mind for a lot of
Mm-hmm,
people. It's
mm-hmm.
getting out there, and yeah, that's good. Why don't I read your bio? Okay. After her column, Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone created a media firestorm, Lenore wrote the book Free Range Kids, which grew into the Free Range Kids movement. Now she is president of Let Grow, the national nonprofit she co-founded with Daniel Shuckman, Peter Gray, Jonathan Anxious Generation Haidt. Their mission? Making it easy, normal, and legal to give kids back some old-fashioned independence.
Yeah,
Yay.
I wrote it. That's my bio. I agree with every word. I'm Lenore Skenazy, and I endorse that bio.
That's it. That's it. So you've been on this journey for a long time.
Like
We are,
you.
yep. Our paths have crossed many times
Mm-hmm.
in the play world, and you've been up to Ithaca,
Mm-hmm.
preaching the gospel of this stuff, and kind of getting us all thinking about what is it to be a free range kid city. What
Mm-hmm.
could that look like? What does a free range kid childhood look like in this day and age? But you've been, yeah. So I'd love to just kind of jump in because
Mm-hmm.
you've been talking about this for so long. So what have you been talking about for so long?
Oh, what I've been talking about so long is how come things that were considered normal, safe, and good a generation or two ago are considered abnormal, unsafe, and bad now. And it just interests me because cultural shifts are big deals. And the cultural shift in this case is from trusting kids to be kind of smart and savvy or to screw up, and that's not the end of the world and pretty safe, to thinking of everything in terms of the least safe thing that could possibly happen and the most scary thing. And actually, as I said, this is my 3 podcast day. Podcast one of the day was at a radio station where the host said, I like what you're saying, but even if it's a small chance, the idea of my kid dying because, and then he filled in the blank, I don't even remember what it was, walking to school, waiting at the bus stop or whatever, is just too great. And that's continues to fascinate me because I don't think we used to think that way. In fact, I know parents didn't used to think automatically that, not only
Hmm.
pessimistically, but doomsday-ish. The
Hmm.
idea that walking a couple houses home from school or waiting for a couple minutes at the bus stop, is unlikely to, but certainly could end up with the child dead. And so it's not a risk I'm willing to take. We've sort of interpreted everything except us being Velcro to our kids as a risk. There's almost nothing we don't interpret as a risk. A toy could hurt a child, and a kid could be mean to a child, and a teacher could molest a child, and a bus stop could be the last place you saw a child. And that kind of thinking is weird. I mean, if it were, I'd like to write the DSM, the diagnostic manual for
Hmm.
psychologists, psychiatrists, and put that in there. This, call it worst first thinking, always coming up with the very worst case scenario. almost creatively
Yeah.
to have a new reason to worry that your kid is not safe without you right there.
Yeah. We're really good at imagining these horrible things happening to our
And
kids. Yeah.
and proceeding as if they're likely to happen. I mean, if it were just fantasies or like, wow, that's a weird thought. I had a weird passing thought. But instead, between parents' worries and then the sort of worry accreting into the culture, you get to the point where kids are not allowed any independence. And the bus stop thing is on my mind. First of all, because I think the podcaster mentioned it, but secondly, because right now I have to hand in an article about a mom whose 7-year-old is not allowed to get off the bus stop in the afternoon. This is suburban Michigan, and walk literally 4 houses to his home, number 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and and she's been pleading with the superintendent, please let him do that, and can't I write a waiver and I'll sign it, and if anything terrible happens you can blame me. And the answer is literally no, and the bus driver will be fired if he lets the kid get off the bus, even though the bus driver is on her side too. And first of all, the absurdity that it's dangerous in this really boring, very empty sort of looking suburb. But secondly, there's no thought to two costs. One is her cost. Okay, I hope you don't have to work at a store, at the grocery, because if you did, you'd have to leave every afternoon and be home at 3 o'clock to wait for your kid to walk him home those 4 houses, the 7 year
Yeah.
old. And then what does it do to a kid? Here he is, a strapping young thing, Tom Sawyer age, and instead of being able to have 3.5, she timed it, 3.5 minutes of freedom, none. He's given no freedom, and it's quote unquote for his own good. And
Yeah.
a culture like that is imposing huge costs on us and our kids, even mental health, and not providing anything for it.
That's right. Right. It's taken away, taken away, taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so then the child who probably thinks, "Oh, it looks fine to me from the bus to those to my house. Is
Mm-hmm.
it really? Is it really that dangerous? Is it?" And then, do they believe the world is? It's they don't believe the world that they see, but the world that
Mm-hmm.
they're told. And then that's kind of scary too. Of like, really?
Then you're imposing this delusion on them. It's like, I mean, if maybe the mom tells her, God, is this a stupid rule and we got to keep fighting. But if
Right.
a kid thinks that it isn't safe to walk home 4 houses, how are they ever going to go outside after they've had their milk and cookies, or their quinoa and flax chips and,
Yep.
and
Yep.
play? Oh, that's that dangerous place where if I even walked home 4 houses, it was too bad to be outside.
Yeah, yeah, you hear about people who don't let, or kids who have said, or adults now who said, when I was a kid, my parents didn't even, they were watching me in the backyard. Like I always had to be watched, even in that kind of surveillance.
Yeah. I keep expecting to hear that, and I keep not hearing it, even from sort of younger parents who you think might have been constantly supervised. Everybody seems to remember a childhood of less supervision than is common now. And I don't know if that's just rosy hued glasses or if the level has ratcheted up so much in the last 10 or 15 years that the the people born before that really did have much more free range. I don't know.
Sure. Well, yeah. So if now it's the young parents who are in their 20s, and then, but they, hello, we've been talking about this for 20 years,
Yeah,
15, 20
yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When did Free Range first book come
Free
out?
range, the
That's,
book came out, I think 2010, 2 thousand
yeah.
and nine or 10. I mean, one of the things I hear all the time now is, well, it's all because of the phones. I'm like, No, I published
Yeah.
my book before the iPhone came out,
Yeah.
right? I mean, children's independence and free play have been going down for decades, not just since phones, not just since COVID.
Yeah, and all over the world. That's the thing
Yeah,
too. Like
that
so
too.
we
Yeah.
we travel all over, and so everyone's kind of feeling that like, oh, children don't have that kind of freedom. And
Hmm.
years ago, I lived in the Netherlands, and for me that was like this awakening of children's play and freedom, and
Mm.
they're in the canals and they're on
Hmm.
rafts and they're, doing all
Hmm.
sorts of stuff in the city streets, and I was really inspired, came over and, started my thing with nature play and all that.
Wait, so
Um,
when you went over there, you weren't already interested in kids' independence and free play?
I went over as a playground designer, like equipment. based.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I was definitely thinking about children and play, but suddenly that kind of opened my eyes to more like play in the neighborhoods and
Wow.
sculpture in public places that you could play
Uh-huh,
on
uh-huh.
and nature and mess and then the adventure playgrounds, stuff like that over
Wow.
there too. So I was like, oh, okay. So I
I
was
didn't know the
geared in.
Rusty backstory.
That's
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I was interested in play, but like, oh wait, play doesn't have to be on,
The
metal
jungle gym.
monkey
Yeah.
bars. Yeah, yeah, it can be wherever. And actually, one of the books that really inspired me was by Robin Moore. You know him in North
Mm-mm.
Carolina, kind of the grandfather of natural playgrounds and playscapes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he did like a dissertation. I think it was like his doctoral dissertation, maybe master or something. And it was a project. It was this book came out as the result, and it was childhood's domain. And part of
Oh,
his project was interviewing children and then letting them, with permission with the parents, follow them from school back and forth and seeing where they played and what was their route through, and they showed them like, oh, well, here's the great ditch where we can catch the frogs, and here's where you can hide,
wow.
but you got to watch out for Mrs. Johnson's dog over here, and
Uh-huh.
all this kind of stuff. And it was like, oh yeah, childhood domain, like in within the
That's
city,
interesting.
within the and yeah. So it made me think about my own child and how I roamed and ranged around and had that kind of freedom. But then, right,
Wow.
it would be a different book now with childhood
Well,
domain.
first of all, nobody would allow you to follow your children. And if
Yeah.
somebody saw a man following children, he'd be arrested and probably drawn and quartered by the time, the defense attorney had a phone call.
Yes.
So that's that. But I have to say, I had, so I do get these heartening letters and calls that allow me to keep going. And one of them was a mom, oh God, where was she? I don't remember. Might have been a tweet. Um, but so now I run Let Grow, and
Yeah.
Let Grow does two free programs in schools. And one of them is called the Let Grow Experience, where teachers give kids the homework assignment. You have to go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. So one lady was, I guess, tweeting that for her kids' Let Grow Experience, she has two sons, they went with some friends to the park where they played on a pile of dirt
Mm-hmm.
for 5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
said it was maybe their best day ever. And then she wrote me the next day and said, and then they did it again today. And you can understand what that pile of dirt represented. First of all, it was freedom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then it was everything. Is it a mountain? Is it a war? Is it is it a monster? Is it just a bunch of dirt? Is it the gut biome? Whatever it is, it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting enough because there was no supervision and because there was no structure to the day. If it had been, we're going to do an aisle of climbing the hill and then we're going to do an hour of reflecting on the climb, I don't think they would have stayed out there for those 5 hours. But because it was them turned on the way I
Yeah.
think Mother Nature expected all kids to be turned on, which is through conquest and excitement and discovery and play,
Mm-hmm.
5 hours. I mean, we're worried about kids' attention spans. You're worried
Yeah.
about TikTok videos. 5 hours with what? A
Yeah.
pile of dirt.
Yeah. 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 And then for so many children throughout the ages, like 5 hours then would be nothing because they were outside all day, all summer vacation, outside every day doing things and having
Well,
that
so
kind of,
what's
yeah.
it's so that's true. And so what's cool is that that part of children didn't die. It's just suppressed right now, right? It's not that they don't know how to spend a big stretch of time entertaining themselves. It's
Yeah.
that they never get the opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Between being indoors, between activities, between school, there isn't that kind of, right. That's interesting. Just the time alone.
Oh, right. No, that's so John Haidt has the Anxious Generation, I don't know, research group or something. And they have a nice relationship with the Harris Poll. So we got to ask the Harris Poll to ask questions. And they did something that I couldn't have ever afforded, which is they did a rigorous survey of kids age 8 to 12. And one of the things they asked the kids is, if you had your choice, how would you like to spend time with your friends? You could spend it, outside or just, hanging out with your friends, basically the pile of dirt equivalent. Or you could be in an organized activity with them, like going off to soccer or chess camp or whatever it is. Or you could be online, playing a video game or chatting or Snapchat or whatever. What's your favorite way to spend time with your friends? And by far, the winner was just hang out with my friends, just hanging out, just playing, no supervision, no structure. Second choice was structured activities like ballet or whatever. And then the third choice was online. And so I think that one of the things our culture is getting really wrong now is that the idea that kids are so attracted to their phones, nothing can take them away. Nothing other than, flogging and electric shocks or something. But in fact,
Mhm.
they're online because they can't go outside.
Yeah.
Their choice is to be roaming around with their friends, and we keep saying, "Oh, kids, they're on their phones again." It's like, yeah, because they have no place else to go where they can hang out and have fun and joke around and play games and flirt and be kids without adults constantly helping and watching and nattering. So that's where they go.
Yeah. Yeah. Bizarre,
Yeah.
futuristic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk to Peter Gray and then he becomes interested and fascinated, like, well, okay, that is a childhood domain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about the dirt pile, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want
Oh,
to keep
he's mostly
connected
about the
kids to him.
dirt pile
Yeah,
too.
he's a dirt pile too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that idea of like they have found some
A
freedom
place to
with
go.
a
Right,
place
right. They
to,
found their cave. Yeah.
yeah,
And
where
and you
they,
know what? I agree with him and with John, which is weird because they're on diametric opposite poles. But I agree that it's a place where kids can meet and can have fun and do invent things and make videos. And, I have a son who's really creative online who also deleted TikTok from his phone because he found himself spending too much time there. So, yes, it can be a creative and connecting domain. And yes, it can be an experience blocker because those 5 hours that you could be, digging in the dirt, you're in your room, you're
yeah,
not really hanging out with your friends, or you're, certainly not smelling the dirt and, tasting it and watching the sun go down and having all these other physical experiences. And you don't necessarily see the people the next day and get to hang out with them again. So I see both sides.
yeah. Well, like the study that you were saying of the children, what attracts them to be outside is other children. Like they
Mm-hmm.
want to be out
That's
there with other children.
I'm always
Yeah.
quoting Peter says that. Peter says it's not that the outdoors lures kids outside. It's seeing other kids walk by the window. Oh, wait, come on. I got my baseball bat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that used to be the thing of like you don't want to be indoors. Like if you were grounded, you had to stay inside. That was like the
Mm-hmm.
bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the bad thing. So it's interesting. There's like all these factors, and Peter talks about all the different factors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about that fear factor and the psychology of people and parents and
Mm-hmm.
the mind. I don't know what that is. Here's a little story of like
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years ago, there was somebody from a FedEx truck
Huh.
did something, abducted a kid or something.
Hey.
I'm a free range kid parent and I want my kids to be outside and go and
Right, right,
and
right.
all that kind of thing. So I'm all about it. But I remember like a week after I heard some little story, I saw a
Uh-huh.
FedEx truck go by
And
and
you're
I
like,
was like, And so I was like, oh my God, there's that feeling.
yes.
Even though I have my philosophy is a whole different thing, I could even feel like that. Ooh, I don't
Yeah.
trust that FedEx truck.
No, I know that feeling too. We all know that feeling. The thing that is sort of new, I guess, is that we believe that that's not fair. I should feel that. It's like I should never have to worry. I should never have to, be unhappily anxious. And so my latest little, I don't know, prop that I'm showing people, and I guess this is audio, so I'll have to explain what I'm showing you. I'm showing, what is this? What am I showing you? It's
Uh, a sneaker, a
a
special,
children's sneaker,
a children's
right?
sneaker. Yep.
Made by Skechers, small company, big company.
It's a big company.
It is a big company. Anyway, so in these sneakers, you'll see, I'm going to lift up the insole here. You'll see there's a little compartment that you have to unscrew, and that's
Yes.
where you put the AirTag.
Okay. And is that a tracking device?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that a big company has been
Yes.
selling these. I mean, I went to the store. I went to my local Skechers store. I said, "Are these popular?" "Oh, yes, they're very popular." And then I bought a pair so I could show people. But that's part of a culture that has decided that something that no adult needed in the history of the world, which was to know where their kid is every single second. You couldn't. You literally couldn't know where they were. They went around
Yeah.
the corner and you just had to learn You had to trust them, you had to trust your neighbors, you had to trust your parenting, you had to trust the odds, maybe you trusted a higher power. But you had to get used to that trust. You had to build that trust muscle because otherwise you'd be terrified every second that you couldn't see them. So, a generation that couldn't track their kids, which is all of generations in human history until like last week, learned to trust their kids in the world. And now, because we have the ability to watch them all the time, we're never going to build that trust. And without that trust, that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is worrying that, like, oh my God, something terrible is happening. And the way you get rid of anxiety is through exposure therapy, right? You expose yourself to the thing that's scaring you, whether it's a spider or your kid going to a birthday party or your kid walking around the corner. And then gradually you realize, oh, it's not so bad. I can live with that. But now you never have to learn to live with not seeing your kid and knowing where they are and what they're doing every second. And I think that's one of the reasons that parents are so anxious today. They haven't developed the antidote to anxiety, which is trust. And they're being told, you never have to worry about the antidote because you never have to trust anymore because you're going to have certainty all the time. So before I was talking to you, in between the podcast and you, was a pediatrician in Denver. And when I said, what's worrying you the most these days? What are you most concerned about? And I wasn't sure what she would say. And she said it's parental anxiety.
Parental anxiety.
She didn't even say kids. She said it's parental anxiety because she doesn't know if it's because then the kids get anxious because they're just exposed to it, or if the kids are getting anxious because the parents won't let them do anything on their own. But either way, it's the parental anxiety that is creating the anxiety that she's seeing rampant in the kids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So then put the chip in their shoe.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on how to put it behind the ear,
Yeah,
probably.
I'm sure. Right, right. Black Mirror style.
Right,
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 right, right.
right. Right, dogs have it, right? So,
That's true. I
huh.
actually don't think dogs have it as a tracking device. I think it's an identification device
Yeah,
for the dogs, right?
yeah. Well, so it was parents' anxiety. And then it's interesting where, I know like when you were starting, say when the book first came out, there were certain I felt it was almost like, all right, everybody, let's change this
Hmm.
thinking, or this is crazy. Let's
Hmm.
let's just common sense will prevail. Like let's remember this. But here we are, like whatever it is, 10, 15 years later, and it's like, wait, whoa, no, it feels like in some ways that has dug in. There's lots of positive things that are going on. And we want to
Hmm.
get into that and the solutions and
Hmm.
and everything that is helping to turn the tide. But it feels almost like it's gotten more as like, well, that's just the norm. There's not kids. Even in Ithaca, where it's pedestrian safe and kid safe and friendly, it is rare to see a kid running down the street with glee, like, wee, I'm going to the neighbors, or I'm. It's like, oh my god, and I live near a skate park, and I hear like, the sound of skateboards,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
skate parks seem
okay,
great. Yeah,
there's kids going, but that's a certain age, a certain demographic, and everything.
yeah,
But it's not everybody.
yeah. It disturbs me too. So, what we're hoping, the Let Grow just has two things that we're pushing all the time. One is that Let Grow experience, because if parents get used to sending kids outside to do something, once a month you have to send them to do something. You and them decide what it is. Are they going to go to the store? Are they going to go to the park? Are they going to make pancakes? Are they going to climb a tree? It's just something. But at least parents once a month are getting used to, exposed to letting their kids do something on their own, which lowers your anxiety because you realize, A, that was fine. B, you're really excited that the kid did something on their own. That's
Mhm.
hardwired. And then C, if something goes wrong, which actually you sort of want to happen, ironically, then you also realize things don't have to be perfect. I mean, right now we're on this really, really skinny balance beam and worry that, like, any second we might fall and, the kid could get hurt or the kid could fall behind or the kid could be, emotionally hurt. It's just, we've reinterpreted everything that could happen to them as damaging, not just annoying or upsetting or frustrating, but literally damaging, sometimes permanently. So the other thing you have to be exposed to as a parent is to realize, like, wow, that was rough and it's okay. Wow,
Mhm.
I don't want to go through that again, but it's okay. So,
Mhm.
so that we're hoping will get more people outside, get more kids outside because it'll just become the norm again. People realize it's not that scary, and in fact, it's exhilarating for them and for you. And then we also, Peter's idea was keep the schools open for free play afterwards with like a lifeguard there, but not, not anybody who's organizing games or solving the arguments. And that way kids get used to playing, right? There's balls, there's the video I show all the time to explain what I'm talking about is your video of
Yes.
reimagining recess, where you just see, a kid helping another kid give him the boost so he could start climbing the tree, and kids making a swing out of some fabric, and kids making their own carnival or whatever it was that this one girl is just writing, quote unquote, writing, not really writing, like using a feather and a wood chip and saying, here's your ticket. Now you can go in. And the kid says, okay, thanks. And he gives her, a leaf, which is the dollar, right? And then they
Yep.
play, and it's like there's imagination, there's leadership, there's cooperation, all these things. You see the kids. My favorite thing is there's a kid dragging around a beaten up old suitcase,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
computer case. And, the thing that makes us, our hearts sink when we have to do that, off to work, here I go, got the
Yeah.
beaten up suitcase. But for them, it's like, this is cool. I'm like, my parents going off to work, or maybe it's a magical suitcase and inside is a bunny, So there's so much that kids will invent and do that we would never come up with. We're limited. How about, well, it's recess. How about you guys can play Foursquare, and how about over there's a soccer game. So
Yeah.
you really need to give kids this opportunity for free play so that that part of them gets turned on. It's not hard to turn on. They just need space and time and other kids. And
Yeah.
so if you want to see kids gleeful again, turn on their play gene and then give them some free time in the community that's not with the parent plotzing, or with the parent plotzing and it's still okay because they start getting used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, your TED talk was amazing. I love seeing just your message boiled down to this tight form. And there was so much in it, but there were moments where like literally tears I felt teary. Things welled up in me. And I love hearing you talk about kids having the freedom to be together. And you always nail it whenever I've seen you speak.
Maybe that was like the hardest one. I mean, that one I practiced for like 6 months and could recite in my sleep. But thank you.
It was incredible, and it was fun to see. I've heard you speak in lots of different lengths, but
Hmm.
it was really interesting to see it like boiled down to this very, very tight message that
Hmm.
had everything. I felt like you walked people through, the idea, the concepts, kind of the good, the bad,
Hmm.
and solutions. But
And jokes.
and
Most
jokes
important. They got the jokes. Yes.
yes, lots and lots of jokes. I mean, I don't know how you packed it into that short amount of time. But at the same time, there were these moments in there that like totally touched my heart, and I felt like crying in these moments. And can I tell you there were
Yeah,
three.
let's hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Gosh,
know that speech pretty well.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, so you were talking about like the pickup ball game, wiffle ball game or baseball game and multi ages playing together outside. And this could be in like a let grow, after school kind of play, when everyone's just there. And the idea of like, typically sports are like segregated by age, but here's
Hmm.
an opportunity for children of different ages to play. And
Hmm.
if a teenager is playing with a 5-year-old who's up to bat, they're not like just trying real hard to get,
Right. I'll show him who's
yeah,
boss.
let's
Yeah.
strike that little sucker out. But it gives so it was like this idea of they can learn empathy and generosity of like letting the little kid get a good hit.
Hmm.
And then it was like this beautiful thing of like, yeah, it's like the little kid gets to be with the big kids that they look up to, but then the big
Hmm.
kid gets to be nurturing and especially if their kids are like they're always being taken care of. But here's an opportunity for an
Hmm.
older kid to be taking care of a younger kid. And
Right. There was a study done of play clubs on Long Island, and I think it's called a qualitative study. And so they asked the kids, what did you love most about play club? And the older kids, and by this I mean fourth and fifth graders, usually said something like, I really liked it when there was a little kid by herself and she looked sad or lonely and I started chasing her, and we played tag.
yeah.
Or I really liked teaching the little kids a new game. And what they didn't realize they were saying is, wow, empathy feels great.
Mm,
Generosity is
mhm.
neat. I like being a leader. And it always reminds me of my favorite story about living in New York is that maybe 10 years ago, there was a mom of a 4-year-old who was at a preschool where just demographically it happened that the other kids in the class were 2-year-olds. And the mom sued the school saying, "How do you think my child is going to get into Harvard?" Her words, going to
Mm,
get into Harvard if she's sort of held back by these toddlers when here she is 4 years old. And so, of course, it was a great New York story. It was a big story in the
yeah,
Post.
yeah.
And and I kept thinking that's how you do get into Harvard. When you're really young, you lord it over these little kids. You get a taste of power. You get a sense of what it means to be the boss, and you
Uh-huh.
you use that as your rocket fuel for the rest of your life. But we don't give kids many opportunities to be with children of different ages. And me too. I just have 2 kids. I mean, we have these small families now. So
Hmm.
your family is small, so there's not this wide range of ages. You're often far from the cousins because we're far-flung families. And then any extracurricular activity is generally segregated by age. You can't go to a little league group that is 5 to 12-year-olds. That just doesn't happen. And that means that not only are the 12-year-olds not practicing the empathy, and by the way, that whole story was gleaned completely from Peter Gray. So
Mm.
thank him next
Yep.
time you see him.
Okay.
So not only do you not get the 12-year-olds with the 5-year-olds, but something else I was going to say that was profound. What is the other thing? Is that you don't even get the creativity, right? Because when you have this ragtag group and they're trying to figure out what to do, and the 5-year-olds can't run as far. So then you decide, okay, well, the rules are this. If you're, 10 and under, you only have to run to this base. I watched this baseball game this summer, which was mostly kids under 10. And it wasn't many kids. I think it was like 4 or 5 kids. And they said, okay, this is first base. And then I heard them from my porch. And there's no second base. And then this is third
Yes.
base.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, you can't get that in an adult organized activity. And so when we have these perfect, teams and leagues that are all segregated and run by adults who know the rules and hew to them and decide if the ball is in or out, you're just not getting all the richness of play that you would get if you were trying to make something happen in a much more informal and I would say organic way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, even with a certain age group like that 7 to 11-year-old, when they start to do like games with rules, they call it,
Mm-hmm.
and this isn't the way an adult would think, but sometimes it's just negotiating the rules is the big thing.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
big, yeah. So recess could be all just negotiating the rules.
Right, right. Now
Yeah.
my friend Camilo took his son to the adventure playground here in New York,
Yeah.
and the adults aren't allowed on there. So Camilo's bored after 2 hours. He's like, okay, it's time to go. And his son, who was 10 at the time, said, "But Dad, we were just about to start a war."
Mm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
once again, you get to the attention span. Somehow, 2 hours of dealing with the give and take of rules
Yeah.
was fascinating and exciting enough for a 10-year-old. And this is a 10-year-old who you would assume, would mostly want to rather be, scrolling through videos or watching something
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
or in a class, which is, not a class, but like Little League.
An activity. Another thing that's nice about the multi-age group, so there's the idea of like, okay, the little kids can look up to the big kids can be nurturing to those little kids, but
Mm-hmm.
then also big kids who get to hang around with little kids, well, maybe they can play again like
Mm-hmm.
little kids. They can be in
Mm-hmm.
their imaginations. They could like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be serious. I don't have to do even the big games with rules. I can just
Mm-hmm.
be playing with the imaginary unicorns or whatever it is digging in the sand.
So there was a private high school here in New York that gave kids 1 week, it's like a furlough,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
week of doing something other than classes. And, there were kids who took field trips and kids who, I don't know, did art classes or whatever. But one of the options was playing with the younger kids. And those kids, these older kids, these high school kids who played with the elementary school kids for that week, just sounded like they were reborn. I mean, they were so
Mm,
rejuvenated. They said it was the greatest week of their lives. They had so much fun. They'd forgotten how much they loved to laugh and play. So you're right. It's an opportunity for everyone. And we keep taking it out of kids' lives to give them what we think of as a more important opportunity, which is, the travel soccer or, some homework help or Kumon. And And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those extracurricular activities, such a hard word to say.
Yeah.
But but nobody recognize you can see the value. Come on, we're going to raise their grades, and little league, maybe they'll go on to the baseball team in junior high, or maybe they'll get onto the league in high school. You can see, and they got a trophy, and here's a picture. And it's just so unquantifiable what they're getting from free play.
Mm.
But if there weren't any quantifiers, if you could just see like where do they end up, you know, coming home flushed and happy and fulfilled and with new friends and new ideas bubbling in them and want to wake up the next day and have a great day again. If that were the measure, which it never is, free play would win.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's children having that kind of freedom, and
Hmm.
being themselves, being in the flow, being in the
Right. Or agency. You should know that agency, you probably know this is the
yeah,
big new word now.
yeah. So then them having choice.
Well, also agency is choice and like the ability to make things happen as
Mm.
opposed to being told what to
Uh,
do and, observed and assisted. Agency is like even in homework, you can have agency versus no agency, but homework's a terrible example. Agency is I'd like to make cupcakes. I'll go to the store, I'll get the
yeah,
mix or
yeah,
the ingredients, and there's so little of that because so much of what's, of childhood is prescribed. And I've heard from a lot of teachers who talk about kids becoming almost radically passive. And what I thought was just like an urban myth of teachers saying like when a pencil falls on the floor, the kid just stares at it. I've heard
oh,
it enough times from teachers who weren't talking to each other that it's ringing true, which is that, they're worried like, am I allowed to pick it up? Should the teacher come pick it up? Am I disturbing the class? And so they're always awaiting operating instructions. And that's not surprising since their school day and their after school day is all about following instructions.
yeah. It's like, so when do they get to practice the agency? It's almost like, okay, go through childhood, go through school, get to college, and boom, there you go. Now you can
Right. Good luck with
now
the
have.
agency. Yeah.
That's right. How's that agency
Right.
going?
Right. Right. What? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's awful hard. Or I sometimes I think about that living in a college town. It's like, wait, this
Mm.
now kids are free range. Like that's when they first become free range when they're at
Yeah,
college.
so
And
what do you see? I mean, you are living in an amazingly, really college-dominated town. What do you see and what do you see that has changed, if you can tell from just seeing them on the street? Maybe you can't.
well, I have some friends that teach at the colleges, and they say
Mm-hmm.
they've seen a big shift in the students, and I would say almost like that agency idea of it's not the pencil that falls, but it's what happens if the grade isn't there, or what happens if they feel like there's too much homework, or what happens, yeah, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to talk to the adults. They don't know how to speak up for themselves. They have their parents involved, even at that stage of things.
Mm-hmm.
I see up at Cornell, it's kind of stressful up there.
Mm-hmm.
I like going up right before classes. If you want to, everyone's still happy from summer and they're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Mm-hmm.
at some point, it's just like, boom, it's all over. And yeah, everyone's pretty
Wow.
serious. I feel a little sorry for them.
Do they ever come to your playground?
Huh. I mean, they're my at the Anarchy Zone Children's Garden. I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they come for fun and play. Maybe there's activities. Maybe a horticulture department comes in and shows, comes in and they study it. My parents saw at an ice cream shop a whole college class with their professor was at the ice cream. So maybe this is trying to help them feel positive again, getting them ice
Wow.
creams. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think of them suddenly on their own if they've never been on their own before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just the other two things that really moved me in the talk
Mm-hmm.
was just that idea again of the kids, they want to be with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of just that feeling of like, oh my God, what if that's really their hearts? They just want to be connected the way
Mm-hmm.
that the children always were. I was friends, lived in neighbors with a farm years and years ago, and they had like five kids. It was like a class. I
Mm.
was like, wow, they're doing that again. All right. And I remember the dad just saying to me, as the kids of all these different ages are running through a field together, the older one
Mm.
who's almost a teenager and the little one who's following way behind. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, kids are pack animals.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Wow,
and
that's a really cool way to put it.
And it's like they're all
I'm
helping
writing it
each
down,
other.
actually.
Yes,
That's really great.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like there's leaders, and then there's the one
Uh-huh.
who needs a little help, but then, and then at a Sudbury school, I saw that same thing with multi ages. You know, Peter talks about those Sudbury schools, and the same thing of like, okay, there's big, strong teenagers that are doing some of the lifting, and then there's 10-year-olds who have had the initial idea to do this play, structure,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like little kindergartners that are like little fairies, and they just kind of come through, and they're like these little magic, creatures, and it was just this mix. It was like this blend, and
I
that
have to
idea of,
say the thing I learned from Peter about that too is that when you have mixed ages, those little fairies become the leaders. And by having mixed ages, everybody gets a chance to be the older cool kids at some point, which I
yeah,
think is great.
yeah, yeah. And back when kids were just roaming the neighborhood, that there was all those mixed stages, and weaving in and out of the experience and the story. And then that was kind of like your finale there. That was very moving. Was that idea of a child doing the things themselves, being out in the
Mm-hmm.
world, having the agency. They are on the hero's journey.
Right. Right. Now, I thought like if people take anything away from the talk, it's the idea that I did it myself is this incredibly powerful sentence and feeling. And kids need it, and they don't need, I did it with my mom's help, or
Oh,
I
yeah,
did it thanks to, my coach. It's just doing things by yourself and also often for yourself, as opposed to for a grade or a trophy or, a resume or somebody else. It's like you talk about agency, that's agency too, doing something because it's of interest to you.
yeah,
And that will often kick in all the other things that we want to see happen, focus and frustration tolerance. There was one school that was doing the Let Grow experience, again, with the homework that says go home and do something new on your own. And this kid wanted to build an amphibious vehicle. And his
okay.
teacher and his mom told us that he was not like the world's greatest student, but he really wanted to do this. And he took to it with, alacrity because it was his idea. And he was using like I can't remember. It was like an old Little Tikes truck, and then he was adding pool noodles to it. And then each week he'd come in and the kids would say, well, how's it doing? He said, oh, it sank again, but I'm going to try,
Mm-hmm.
balloons this time or whatever it was. And she said, and because he was so interested in this one project, which is obviously pointless and nobody needs an amphibious vehicle that's made out of a Tonka truck,
Yeah.
and Tonka would never sell it. But because it was his idea and something he wanted to do, then he started reading like Wikipedia on
Mm.
the history of amphibious vehicles and how do you attach things with grommets or whatever. And so it is self-direction happens when there's a direction you want to go in. And if the direction is, whether it's starting a game, getting buy-in for your idea, making something or making something happen, all of that requires us adults stepping back and letting the kids go in a direction that doesn't either interest us or, just isn't us. It's not our thing, it's theirs. And we
Yeah.
give kids so little time and autonomy to pursue anything other than these boring, small ruts of school, soccer, Kumon. And then we tell them, follow your passion. It's like, well, I don't like school, soccer, or Kumon. So I don't have a passion. It's like,
Mm.
well, nobody's going to discover a passion if there's zero time of the day to do it.
Jeez. Yeah. 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 They need that time to find out who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they like, what they want to
Mm-hmm.
do, what they want to follow.
Right. They need your reimagining recess. So tell me what's happening with reimagining recess, because as you know, that's my favorite video.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so that was kind of like a pre-COVID thing. And
Oh.
then after COVID, different schools kind of took it different directions. There are some schools that are still doing it, that still have the
Mm-hmm.
shed and
Mm-hmm.
have loose things. There are some that just have some tires. And then there's some that have kind of gone different directions. And then there's others that have started doing farm programs where there are more straw bales and stuff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
still kind of a variety of things happening with it. But still with the schools that had it initially, I think the culture changed. So the adults still are interested and they still get it, even though it
Mm-hmm.
might not be as full power when we are as hands-on with it.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's such a great program. Let me
Yeah.
ask you one shed question.
Yeah.
So, how big is the shed and what's in it?
Like a 10 by 12 shed, like a classic backyard shed. And it could be anything from, traffic cones to tires to scrap lumber to tarps, boards, pumpkins, anything. We have a reuse center in town that's like a Salvation Army. You can get all sorts of used stuff, like garage sale stuff. That's great, but then also getting donations from the community and everything.
That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we want to see more people, more schools doing after school thing, this Let Grow Play Club. And
Yeah.
we were wondering if a shed is crucial. Maybe it is.
If you want to clean up, if you want to keep it tidy, yes, it's good to have a shed. That's great. No, in fact, it'd be nice if like that is the Let Grow shed kind of thing, so they have an idea of it. But at the same time, other schools just have the stuff laying around. If you talk to your neighbors and let them know, hey, this is on purpose. We have the stuff. It's intentional that it looks junky, but we have loose things, and that's kids' creativity and imagination.
Very cool.
Well, Lenore, thanks so much. Great to talk.
All right. Thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. You know I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.